In 2024, there aren't that many good movies that are actually worth going to see on a date.
Yeah. It's funny because like when you think about a date movie, like I can't think of what the last one would be. Like what movie would you take someone on a date with in this day and age?
I don't know. Did Kung Fu Panda 4?
Like, Ice Age 15.
That and sequence designer, impressionist, and author of Shit My Mama Says, Bobby Hedglin-Taylor. Bobby, welcome back. How are you
Thanks for
doing?
having me.
Of course. It is a pleasure having you on the show whenever I have you on the show. You were our guest last week as well.
Yep, and last year.
And last year,
Yep,
around the same time, I would think. It was like
probably. Yeah.
September last year, if I remember
Yep.
correctly. So,
Yep. Your movie cycle. So for some reason next September you'll find a movie that I know I like as well. So.
yeah. It works out that way, and it's just like, oh, lovely. So yes, this week we are back, and we are continuing our discussion on Hocus Pocus, the classic 1993 film, which apparently did terrible at the box office, according to you. I don't know any of this, but like, cool.
Yeah, it did. It was a bomb.
Yeah.
But it disappeared quickly. Like I said to you, the reviews were not great. I mean, look at Rocky Horror. Rocky Horror was a bomb as well. Rocky Horror was like listed at the time as one of the worst movies ever.
Was it
And
actually?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it was. That's why it became such a cult classic because people started talking back to the screen, and then that's where the audience participation stuff evolved from.
That is fair. My friends, hopefully, we're gonna be able to figure this out. But since I've never been to a live viewing of
Oh, you
Rocky
need to go.
Horror,
It
they're like
depends on where you
taking
go,
me.
though. I mean, here in New York, we still have the space downtown where it originated, really, where you can go. But they've had to change a lot of the audience participation
Hmm.
because injuries, lawsuits and stuff like that. But it's still a great experience. It's still really just a blast. So
Nice. I mean, it sounds very fun.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah. I look forward to it. I don't know what is going to happen or if I'm going to be able to go. That is a different thing that we got to figure out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure. Wonderful. So, where we left off, before we get back into Hocus Pocus and where we left off and everything, as always, I have a question for you.
Hmm.
If you could play a character in this movie, who would you want to play?
Oh God. Um, I probably would want to do Billy, the zombie, because I love nonverbal humor, and first of all, love that character, and
I've seen very little of him so far, but I'm
yeah,
intrigued on what he
there's
does.
just some opportunities for nonverbal communication that are just I love that kind of humor. And of course, everybody wants to play the witches, but I also I just like the characters on the periphery. So
Understanding.
yeah.
Yeah,
But Billy would be my ideal. So
fair. My current top of the list is Thatchery.
okay.
I
The
kind of want to be a
voiceover for the
sassy
cat.
black cat. I want to be a sassy black cat.
Well, there's a market for that.
Something about that speaks to me.
That's what I was saying. Like that, these because it's such a cult classic. It literally like you forgive all of the script. You forgive all of the suspension of belief that you have to have going into this movie, just because it's just a bowl of fun soup. You know what I mean? Like it's
It
a
is.
silly Halloween, get you in the mood. It's not too serious, and and it's got some really just cult classic silly moments. So
Oh yeah, I am very much enjoying this film. So
yeah.
where we left off is we are about to head trick or treating, which mainly tells me that Max is about to do something dumb and get the witches to come back. Something's happening in the
Good
next
guess.
like 10 to 15 minutes and Max is going to do something dumb. I don't know what that dumb thing is, but he's about to do something dumb. And so they head out. Max is dressed like a rap singer. First of all, it's called rapper, not rap singer.
It was
Second of all,
93. We didn't have them then.
we didn't have they were still new. We didn't know what they were.
Yeah. Vanilla Ice was still on the periphery,
Oh, fair. um, all he did was put on a pair of sunglasses. Well done, buddy. Great costume.
Yeah.
So they are trick or treating and they're at a house and they see a bunch of older kids destroying some of the decorations, screaming and scaring the little kids as they're coming out. And hey, look, it's Jay and Ice. And Max is like, hey, let's go a different direction because he's like, I don't need to deal with this anymore. But Danny isn't smart and goes straight to them. No street skills for Danny. None at all. And apparently there's a toll to get through, and it is 10 chocolate bars. No licorice, dump out the sash. And Danny just says, drop dead, moron. Love Danny, but Danny, read the room. Read the room, Danny. These are not the people to be saying, drop dead, moron, too. Now, Danny is like, I've got my big brother with me. And the guys recognize him immediately as Hollywood. And then they're like, oh no, it's Hollywood. And they shiver. The acting, beautiful. I love it. It's the corniness that you need, it's the silliness that you need. They do great. The boys then start messing with Max and ask if he's meant to be a new kid on the block. And I was like, oh, New Kids on the Block. That's a reference that I get.
Yeah, they were brand new back then. They were actually kids.
Yeah, not anymore. um, and Danny just goes, he's a little leaguer. Danny, I don't think you're helping. Stop talking. Don't make this worse for him.
Yeah.
And as I predicted, they made more fun of him for this. And Max gives him whatever candy he had, and then they just head out. And Max is like, oh, this sucks. And Danny's like, well, you should have punched them. And he's like, they would have killed me. And then Danny responds with, at least you would have died like a man. Danny,
Right.
do you not care about your brother?
Apparently not.
Danny, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, for a little girl, she was pretty bossy.
Oh yeah, just a smidge, just a smidge. Max tells her that she just humiliated him in front of half the guys at school, and she's just like, "Oh well," and I'm like, "Wow, you really just don't care about your brother at all."
No, not it's weird when you look at that dynamic too. Like she's the bossy one, and he's kind of getting forced into this. So if she and when you see the way it unfolds, like if it wasn't for her being bossy, none of this would have happened. Like so
It's probably true.
yeah,
In what little I know, probably true.
yeah.
Now they he just tells her to collect the candy, get out of my life. And Danny gets really upset by this and wants to go home. So she goes home in the sense that she goes over to some pumpkins and some hay bales and starts crying. Home. For anyone that's listening, just to the audio, home was in big quotations. Max apologizes and explains that he hates this place. He misses his friends from home. And Danny's like, well, this is your home now. Get used to it. And Max is like, look, give me one more chance, trying to be a good older brother. And, they share a laugh and, they head out. And he sees something that, you know, I thought it was like something flew over the moon. I couldn't quite tell what it was because the witches aren't back. So how can they be flying over the moon? But what did he see? Is it important? Does it come back?
No, it's not important. It's just to distract her, you know.
Okay. Okay.
So
Because
it's
it
not. Yeah,
looked like something flew over the moon, and I was like, but the witches aren't back, and they're the only ones that can canonically fly in this universe.
right. Not yet.
So, you know, what's going on? But he just, says that he saw something and then scares Danny from behind. And they stand up and realize that they are at a huge mansion. Woohoo! Because there has to be a huge mansion. Lovely. Now, they're just like rich people. They're probably going to make us drink cider and bob for apples. Is that what people used to make you do in 1993 when you went trick or treating if you wanted candy?
I don't know. The last time I went trick or treating was the 1970s. So, yeah, even with my
Fair. I mean, the last.
little cousins when I went, nobody asked us to bob for apples. So,
Yeah, I mean, the last time that I went trick or treating was early 2010s. Like the first couple years of the 2010s. And then, I mean, we were smart and we would go to the neighborhoods with the mansions and get the big chocolate bars.
right, exactly. I mean, everybody does. That's like, when I was a kid, we had a choice of going to the larger areas in downtown Stroudsburg, or there was one trailer park that we could hit a whole bunch of homes to get candy, and we always made a huge haul going to that one trailer park. Um,
Fair.
so it's like, you're strategic as a kid. In New York City kids don't get that as much. I was with Big Brothers Big Sisters in '93. Ironically, I took my little brother to see this movie after I saw it the opening day with my friend Jean, where there was nobody in the audience.
Hmm.
Um, but I would take my little brother to the movies, and we would see whatever the big movie was, or, but then I would take him trick or treating, but we were only allowed to trick or treat in his building. His mother didn't allow him to go to any other building. And then if they did go, she would take them to specific buildings because they knew everybody who was in their building. So we would go down the elevator to the first floor, and then, creep all the way up to the top floor, and then, that's the candy haul that they got for the day. So, it depends on where you're from. And also, like, this is rural Salem. So, back, when I visited Salem, there's not a lot of big mansions there. So that's kind of a stretch in itself. Oh, ironically, here's a you're going to see it later in the movie,
Okay.
but just know that you'll see a school in the movie. It's actually the opening credits to the Friends sitcom. It's the same school.
Oh,
So
fun.
when you see that, you'll recognize it right away. And that's just a fun fact. They filmed part of this movie in the same spot they filmed the opening to Friends. So
Nice.
it's yeah. So it's just a stupid little thing.
Yeah, I mean that ain't spoilery at all. It's hey,
No,
we
there's no.
end up at a school. Cool.
Yeah,
Like
you'll see it, and you'll know when it happens too. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that sounds really fun. I mean,
yeah.
like I grew up for most of my life until I was a teenager, I lived in Kentucky. And so it was like every single year we were allowed to go to like more and more of the neighborhood. And so it was like really fun because like, we would plan it out and be like, all right, we have to hit this house. And like we knew by the time we were like 10, we knew which houses to get to
Oh
first.
yeah, yeah.
And we were like, okay, so we need to start there, we need to end here, and then we do another loop this way. And like, oh, we got huge candy hauls by the time we were like 10, 11,
It
12.
depends on. It also depended. I remember that just had a memory come back. It depends on who went with you.
Mm-hmm.
If my parents were driving us, then we could get a huge haul. But if we were staying local, like my cousin came in from New Jersey, helped us make our costumes, and then she walked us around. So, like, and I'll never forget because I went as Gandalf from
Nice.
Lord of the Rings. And I still have part of the costume. I have the fabric that I ended up making like a little end tablecloth because it was this really cool shiny black fabric with little gold stars on it. But that that particular year, my cousin brought she brought all the stuff. And we made our costumes, and then she took us out. We still had a good haul, but if my parents were driving us, we could drive all over the place, and we would go to different developments that had like some were gated communities that you could they would let you in on Halloween, but other times it was mostly just around our community. I was born and raised on a mountain in Pennsylvania, so there wasn't a very lot close by, but like I said, like it depends on regionally where you are, but I don't remember there being a mansion in Salem. So
Speaking of the mansion in Salem, I was like, great, Allison's gonna be at the door,
yeah.
isn't she? And then they just walk straight into the house. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's how this is supposed to work, but hey, look, it's Allison. Max says that he's just taking his little sister Danny around, as he always does. And then Danny from the side, my parents made him. Danny, stop trying to help. It's hard enough to talk to a girl. Stop trying to help.
Right.
Allison offers cider. Apparently, that's what they do with the rich mansions in Salem. And Max says, sure. Danny's like, no. So Allison grabs them each a glass, and then the party's boring and just a lot of, parents as friends, and Allison is on candy duty. And she likes Danny's costume, and Danny's dressed like a little witch. I don't know if we've established this, but she's a witch. And Danny likes her, but can't wear anything because she doesn't have any yabus. Max likes her yabus. Or yabos. Poor Max.
Yeah, if you're going to be a post-pubescent teenager, that's the perfect way to just torture somebody, just even from
Just
your little sister who has no idea what a yabo is.
no. Just I feel for Max.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to have a crush on someone, and then you have other people just like, making your life miserable and making you super embarrassed in front of them. Poor guy.
Yeah.
Um, Allison giggles. She doesn't just get disgusted by this. So, like, fair enough. She does seem to find Max intriguing, but again, poor Max. Max deserves better. Tells Danny that she's really into witches, and they just learned about the Sanderson sisters. Danny did. And Allison's mom used to run the museum around the Sanderson sisters, but the museum shut down because a lot of spooky things kept happening there. And so Max is like, okay, well, I've been embarrassed so far. Why don't we do something, I guess, like dangerous, and let's go see the old Sanderson house? And he convinces Allison by saying, come on, you'll make a believer out of me. And so Allison is like, all right, fine, let me go change. So she heads out, they change. And Danny's like, I don't want to go. And she's like, my friends at school have said it's really creepy up there. And Max just goes, this is the girl of my dreams.
Mm.
And Danny hits him with a great line. So take her to the movies like a normal person. Two things. One, fair, valid, fair. Two, in 2024, there aren't that many good movies that are actually worth going to see on a date.
Yeah. It's funny because like when you think about a date movie, like I can't think of what the last one would be. Like what movie would you take someone on a date with in this day and age?
I don't know. Did Kung Fu Panda 4?
Like, Ice Age 15. Dawn of the
Yeah.
T-Rex. Whatever they are, whatever the.
I mean, I did go see Kung Fu Panda 4 in theaters. And it wasn't like I really wanted to go see it, but I was in India, and then family friend, little kid, she was like 8. And she was bored sitting at home. And
Hmm.
so I was like, and then my cousin was there as well. And so the two of us were like, okay, like, what's going on? Like, what's at the movies? Cause it's hot. Like, we can't be outside. Um, but so we were like, all right, what's out right now? And then we were like, all right, like, we'll take her to go see Kung Fu Panda. And so I went to go see it. I predicted the entire plot in the first like 10 minutes of the film,
Yeah.
but it was still enjoyable and I still laughed. So I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because like when I think of dates and dating, like we used to go to horror movies with dates. Like I remember going to see Halloween on a date and Friday the 13th, the very first movie on a date. The Exorcist, like those were date movies because you wanted to be close to your date. So when they got scared, so that was the vibe. But nowadays, I don't even know what a date movie is or what it
I
feels like.
barely know what a date is, let alone a date movie. So,
I'm
you
married
know.
21 years. I don't know what a date is either, but that's another story.
um, yeah, not really sure on the first part of it before
Yeah.
we even get to the movie half of it.
Yeah. To me, a date is I'll meet you at McDonald's, like that's what that's date night these days. So
You sure? I mean, date night is like, hey, um, we we were able to splurge. What? I got the good popcorn for at home movie.
right.
Or like date night is, hi, we're gonna actually watch the next episode of the TV show we want to watch together.
Right.
um, Especially like with our industry where our schedules are always changing. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm
I know. I have
never
a show
free.
tonight. Like I totally forgot I had a show tonight, and sound check is at 8:30, and I don't go on until 9:30, 10 o'clock. So I told it's like, and then on Friday my show is at 7:30. So when you're, like you work at night and perform at night, there's not a lot of time to do other things, like that. So
Yeah. I work at night, perform at night, and then I work during the day trying to then get stuff to perform at night.
yep.
Like one of my friends was like, "Hey, we should hang out." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. I might have a day off in October."
Right. Yeah. I would say sometime in January 2025, I'll have a day.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And then
Hence
you have to plan it weeks in advance.
yeah.
And you never, and then when that date rolls around, you're like, oh crap, somebody booked me to do X, Y, and Z on that date. And it's an income producing property. So I have to cancel the plans I made 3 months ago. You
Yep.
know, so
Sounds about right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's why when my friends are like, "Hey, we should hang out." And I'm just like, "I don't know." It's why we don't know what a date is. It's
Right.
because we're never free. Anyway,
Back to
uh back to Hocus Pocus and not that. We're
it's
still
okay. We'll
talking
fix
about a
your
date.
dating life soon. Don't worry about
Eh.
that.
Max says that his this is the girl of his dreams, right? And so Max is like, "Look, I'm asking you for this one thing, and then I'll do anything for you." Well, Max, this is impressive, but like this is a golden ticket. Danny takes a moment, and Danny is smart. Danny thinks for a minute. And Danny's like, "Okay, deal. But next year, we go trick or treating as Wendy and Peter Pan with tights, or it's no deal."
I love how Max does a double take here. Like, oh man, is it really worth it for time? You know?
He might have agreed, and then he was like, "Oh, I heard the with tights. Like, hold on, is this really worth it?" Um, but then he's just like, "You know what? No, this is the girl of my dreams. It is worth it." So he agrees. So we head out and we head to the house. Now, they make it to the house, and legend has it that the bones of 100 kids are buried within the walls. And they get into the house and they open the old door. And I love how the jack-o'-lantern like is acting like a light. Like there's a light inside the jack-o'-lantern which has canonically candy in it.
No, those actually came out. There was a bunch of them that came out in the late 80s, early 90s that had the light in the pumpkin, and then McDonald's actually fun fact, McDonald's had pumpkins that you could get with a Happy Meal inside for trick or treat.
Oh, no, I know that, like, they exist because I
Yeah,
think I had one as a little
yeah.
kid that, like, would light up, and I was
I
like,
mean,
"Oh, yay!"
but when you see how much light that little pumpkin gives, you know that there's a guy with a boom standing 5 feet away. You know.
It's that's what surprised me was I was like, "Huh, I never remembered them being that powerful."
Yeah.
Um,
Movie magic, we call
movie magic. Now, Max finds a lighter and they find a light switch, and I
it. Yeah,
was
there
like,
happens to be a lighter at this museum
"Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah."
still works. It's covered with
Well, they found a light switch, and I go, "Oh yeah," because in the 1600s, electricity was a thing. And
right,
then I processed that this became the museum, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Um,
right.
but that was not my first thought.
But it just, I mean, just when you think about it, when you look at this scene, if it's been shut down that long, and there's cobwebs all over the souvenir lighters and everything else that's left there, like how long has it been? How long has that museum been empty? You know what I mean? Like it just seems, like I said, this is where a lot of the context of the movie that I always say, like, this is where this, you really have to suspend belief on where you are in this, in any given moment in the story. You know, that's one that just takes me out of it, because then I'm wondering, well, how long has that been? Like, it looks like it's been completely abandoned for like 20 years, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
So, and then all of a sudden the lights work, so anyway, just
Yes.
continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on off a tangent there.
No, no, you're good. I mean, like, it makes no sense. Um, but that's what this show is all about: is tangents and pointing out things that don't make sense.
Well,
So they look around, and we see Thatchery in cat form, watching from the window. And Allison shows them the spell book of Winifred Sanderson, given to her by the devil himself. And the book is bound in human skin and contains the recipes for her most powerful and evil spells. And Max looks over and he sees the black flame candle. That on a full moon it will raise the spirits of the dead when lit by a virgin on Halloween night. And I immediately go, so Max the Virgin is going to light this candle, prove that to try to prove that this legend is wrong. Surprise! It's right. The witches come back and they create some chaos and tomfoolery.
yes,
On
that
that
is
lovely note, we're going to take a quick intermission and be back.
it.
Hello, everyone. I hope you are all enjoying this episode of Post Finale. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And if you enjoy the episode and you are having a good time, please make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're listening on YouTube and hit that like button. And please be sure to follow the show if you're listening on any other app like Spotify, Apple Music, etc. It doesn't matter where you're listening for us. It just means so much that you are listening to this episode. And thank you all so much. It really does help out the show and the channel. So thank you all very much for tuning in. Now, if you are enjoying the content and you want to gain access to more content, you can do so by signing up for our Patreon. And speaking of Patreon, we have an update for our patrons. And the update is that Lucy Sadler, thank you so much for upgrading to production manager. It really means a lot to us. Thank you so much. And for anyone else that wants to sign up, gain access to bonus content, you can see tier lists, you can see notes that we have, some bonus videos, some bonus audios, different things like that. You can suggest films that we do. All sorts of things like that can be found on our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/coopforge. So that's patreon.com/CO_OPFORGE. And thank you so much to anyone who is even considering this. It really does help us out a lot, and thank you. Now, be sure to also follow us on social media for Post Finale. You can find us at Post Finale Pod on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also follow Co-op Forge, where we post a lot of content as well, not just about Post Finale, but for all the shows that we host here on Co-op Forge. So that includes Seattle Across the Pond, and that includes Flip the Scripts. So if you want to follow that one on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, it is at Co-op Forge. So at CO_OPFORGE. And it really does help. The best way to help the show in a non-monetary way, if you want to do that too, is just to talk about the show. Word of mouth is the best way to help grow the show. Just reach out to a friend and be like, hey, you love films, or hey, I know that you need a reason to watch more films. Check out this show where the host is an actor who hasn't seen anything and he's confused most of the time on what's going on. It's silly, it's a fun time. He's really humble. It's a fun, great way to help the show grow. And talk about us on social media. It really, really does help. Thank you all so much to anyone who has done this in the past, anyone who will do this in the future. It really does mean the world to us. But that's enough of me rambling on. Once again, if you want to follow us on social media, it's at Post Finale Pod and at Co-op Forge, CO_OPFORGE. And if you want to sign up for the Patreon, again, there is zero pressure to do so. Listening to the show means so much to us. But if you want to do that, it can be found at patreon.com/co-op-forge. So that's patreon.com/CO_OPFORGE. And let's get back to the show. We're back, and Allison doesn't want the Virgin Max to do this. She's like, no, this is a bad idea because I believe in witches. And just then, Thatchery the cat jumps and attacks Max. And is just like, stop doing a dumb thing, child. Danny says, you've had your fun, let's go. Allison agrees. And Max is just like, oh, come on, it's just a bunch of hocus pocus. And then just go, roll credits.
Don't you hate it when somebody uses the title of the movie in a sentence and it's like, it's cheesy? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
but the whole movie's cheesy, Bobby.
No, but I know that. But like, there's other movies where they do that. It's just like, it's this weird aside to the audience almost, you know? So it's just like, can you get any more cheesier?
Where, like, I think it works in this one.
Yeah, I guess.
I wasn't upset about it in this one, but I know what you mean, because there are definitely, like, I think it was even like the first Kung Fu Panda movie where he was like, who are you? It's like, I do Kung Fu, but you're a panda. I'm a Kung Fu Panda, or something along those lines. And I'm like,
Right.
no, like, stop. Like, at least this one, like, I don't know if the phrase was coined before this or after it, but Hocus Pocus is a phrase that I have heard a lot around Halloween.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's from this movie or, like, you know.
No, it's an
old.
it's a very old timey. It's a very old timey saying about magic. So
Great. So, like, that's why, and like the whole movie's cheesy, but like that's why I felt like it still worked, because it feels like something that a character in this film would say. But I do get it.
Yeah.
Now, Max ignores Danny and Allison and lights the candle. And then things start to change, and all the lights start going out. Danny starts getting scared. Max realizes that he done goofed, and there is wind, and the floorboards all start moving and shaking, and then that stops, and they're just like, what happened? And Danny just goes, a virgin lit the candle.
Best laugh line in the movie.
The sass from this 8-year-old girl is incredible.
Right. Yeah, Thora Birch. Who knew? You know, back in the day.
Yeah. The candles and fires all turn on, and the door swings open, and the sisters are back. Woohoo! The curse worked perfectly. Now, Winnie is curious, of course, on who lit this black flame candle. She wakes the book up as well, and then the smelling sister, Mary?
Mary, yes.
Mary, the one who smells
children.
I smell
children.
Yes, that one. They go and they scare Danny out of her hiding place. And Danny plays along. And she's like, well, I never thought you would come back. You know, 'twas I that brought you back. And I was like, aw, she's not throwing Max under the bus. Maybe she does actually love her brother. Debatable, but maybe.
I often thought, you know, many times, like, is this, I mean, yes, we all know that it's actually magic that's bringing them back. But when Danny's talking to her, like, how she automatically talks in their native language. I thought thou'd never come back. Like, who talks like that? You know what I mean? So I always thought maybe it was she still didn't believe that it was a real thing and that they were just adults in costumes. You know, so I always was like, just a weird thought process at that point.
No, that's fair. I
Like,
see your point. I mean, the only reason that I let it go in the sense of, like, her change of speech and everything was she did mention that they learnt about the Sanderson sisters at
right.
school. So maybe with that, the teacher was like, and this is how they used to talk back in the 1600s.
Maybe. Maybe.
And so maybe it was like, they used words like thou and they used words like twas, um, which is a word that I still use. But, like, apparently I'm weird. So they start to grab her. The witches start to grab her, and she's scared, but she plays along well and tells the witches that it is 1993, and the sisters realize that they have been gone for 300 years. And I was like, ah, yes, the 1600s, right? Lovely. They start laughing, and Danny laughs nervously. And Danny says, "Well, this has been great fun, but I must get going." And then they're like, "Stay for supper." And she's like, "I'm not hungry." And then the witches just go, "Oh, but we are." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's not creepy at all." Now, Danny tries to run because, unlike Thackeray, she is smart. Thackeray did not attempt to run. Neither did Avery, Amy, I don't know, the child that got killed at the very beginning of the movie
Emily.
who did not matter. Emily, sure, that's her name.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I cared about her a lot.
Well, she's in like 15 seconds of the movie, so.
Oh, yeah.
To be
They
fair.
say her name more than we see her, probably.
Right, right. Emily.
Now, she tries to run, is not successful, is physically picked up, and just as she is going to be dropped into the cauldron, Max stands up and tells them to let go of his little sister, and Winnie zaps him with the zappy zap magic, and plants him up against the wall, and Winnie lifts him up while she and Sarah are laughing at that. Allison grabs a broom and a pan and knocks out Mary. Now, Danny jumps up, hits Winnie and Sarah with her candy bag, which, didn't she just have a jack-o'-lantern? Where did she get the candy bag? How did the jack-o'-lantern turn into a candy bag?
Again, script inconsistencies. And
It was a very lit jack-o'-lantern. Max had the bag, and Max gave the bag to the bullies. Okay.
Don't know. Unless they both had bags and
She
somehow
canonically
Allison.
was holding a jack-o'-lantern.
But maybe Allison brought that. I don't know. Again, I really don't know.
So they continued the trick-or-treating route while they were going to the Sanderson house? They were like, well, on the way, we might as well get some candy.
Yeah, again, that's why I said, like, none of this is meant to make sense. It's just meant to be a silly movie. So that,
I
again,
mean,
there's so many spots where, from a director's eye, you look at the details, and there's so many missed opportunities, but also so many details that they just sort of swept under the carpet. Like, no one's going to get that. No one's going to be looking,
no one expected Ankit to be looking at this 21 years later. No, 31 years later.
31 years
31 years later and dissecting it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't even a thought then. So, yeah. So, they start running around and the cat assists them and the kids start running. And Max tells Danny and Allison to run. He climbs up to the second story and he goes, "You have messed with the great and powerful Max, and now much suffer the consequences." Not much, must suffer the consequences, must suffer the burning rain of death. And he pulls out the lighter. He triggers the sprinkler system, and the witches run away. And Thackeray stops Max and starts to talk. And he's like, "Well, why didn't you do that when trying to tell, him who he was and, like, not to do the whole lighting of the candle thing?" Anyway, my first thought was, hey, look, it's Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Mm-mm-mm.
I forget the cat's name in that, but
I don't remember either.
I'm sorry.
Again, by that time, I was traveling so much with work that I had not even paid attention to Sabrina.
Fair. The Teenage Witch. I mean, this did come out before Sabrina the Teenage Witch TV series, which
Right.
started in 1996 and ran to
Right. There was a
2003.
cartoon in the 70s called Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just trying to
I can't
see.
remember what the name of the cat was.
Right. The cat was named Salem? Saberhagen? No, that doesn't sound right. Harvey? Who's the cat? I
No
just want to do
idea.
the cat. What's the cat's name?
You
Nick.
have the Google.
I have the Google. The Google is failing me.
The Google is failing you.
Oh, I guess it is Salem.
Okay.
Saberhagen.
Salem Saberhagen.
Cool.
All right.
Maybe he was named after the town. I don't know.
Probably.
Probably. Let's be honest. Now, Thackeray tells him to grab the book. Max smashes the glass, grabs the book, and the kids all escape. And then Winnie realizes that, oh, it's just water. This has all been a trick. And they chase after the children, but get stopped by the road, thinking that it is a river. It is the Black River of Death, or just a black river. I don't know. It might not be of death, but of death makes things sound cooler. So they realize that, it's just a road, and then they head out. And now the cops have shown up. They start to head out, and the cops show up. And, the sisters get scared by the lights. But then it's a fire truck. And here's where I have an issue with this. You had blue and red lights, and then you had a fire truck. Blue and red is for police. You can't have them on a fire truck. It'll work. I'm colorblind and I know this. So, I don't know. Anyway, the kids get to a graveyard, and Thackeray explains that it's hallowed ground, and the witches can't step foot here. And Thackeray brings them to the headstone of William Butcherson, a lost soul. Billy Butcherson was Winnie's lover, but she found him sporting with her sister Sarah, so she poisoned him and sewed his mouth shut with a dull needle so he couldn't tell her secrets even in death. Winnie was always the jealous type. Why does Thackeray know this?
Again, who knows? I mean, you never, like, he was alive. He was the only other character that was alive at the time that the witches were there, and he
Fair.
was a human up until they were hanged. So he knows the story of Billy Butcherson. Billy Butcherson. He knows how, So yeah, he would probably know more about them than anyone else. So I guess that's the I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm confused too. It's okay. We can be confused.
But the one thing that I think you missed was right when they were talking about the firemen.
Mm-hmm.
Winnie explained that the candle's magic only works for 24 hours.
Oh, we get to that in just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, that is
Yeah.
true. So the witches are hiding, and before we get back to the witches, though, Allison puts together that this cat is Thackeray Binks. Thackeray
with a hard
Thackeray.
K.
Thackeray Binks. I've been mispronouncing his name the whole episode. But Thackeray Binks, and that the legends are true. And Thackeray is like, all right, let me come take you to see something else. Now the witches are hiding, and the firefighters come out of the house, and they're mad at the sprinklers, being like, stupid teenagers, I hate Halloween. Now, the witches think that they are witch hunters. They wear black robes and carry axes and chop the wood to burn us. And I was like, oh, that's a fun way to just incorporate like witch hunters into modern day.
Yeah.
Nice. Like, fun piece of script writing right there. Now, this is when Winnie explains that when the sun comes up, they are dust, toast, pudding. Fortunately, the potion that was brewed the night that they were hung I'm sorry, hanged. We learned this in the last episode. It is
Yes.
hanged. Would keep them young and alive forever. And I was like, well, obviously that didn't work. You were hanged. Now, the recipe is in the spell book. Then what was in the cauldron that they created? Like, because like some substance came back into the cauldron immediately as they came back to life.
Did it?
Yes. Otherwise,
Oh,
why
I
were
didn't
they
even. I
putting
didn't.
Danny
I
into the
didn't take.
cauldron?
I did not take notice of that.
They were gonna boil her alive.
Did not take note. I watched it last week, so I. But again, I've
Fair enough.
seen it so many times. Some of the scenes probably blur into each other.
Oh yeah, I've watched it once in
Mhm.
detail. So yeah, I mean, I'm getting to the point now where I've been doing this show for a year, and so it's like, okay, now I'm getting to the point where like I could potentially go back if I ever have the time and slash when I have the time and like go watch some of these movies that like I watched in such detail and just sit down and enjoy them
Yeah.
and just watch them a second time through. There are some that I will not be doing that for, and there's
Hmm.
some where I'm like, I will do this.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we find out that they must find the book, brew the potion, and suck the lives out of all the children in Salem before sunrise. Otherwise, curtains, we evaporate, we cease to exist. Dost thou comprehend? They do. Now, Thackeray, back with the cats, explains that because of him, his little sister's life was stolen. No, buddy, it wasn't because of you. It was because your little sister was lured away by witches. You tried to save her. You just were bad at your job of saving her.
Mm.
Now, for years, he waited for his life to end so he could be reunited with his family. But Winnie's curse of immortality kept him alive. Then he figured out what to do with his eternal life. And he failed Emily, but he wouldn't fail again. So, when Winnie and the sisters returned, he would be there to stop them. So, for the past 3 centuries, he has guarded the house on All Hallows Night when he knew some airhead virgin might light the candle. And then he turns and is just like, nice going, airhead. I think
Hmm.
that's Danny. I think
Yeah.
that's Danny
Yeah.
that turns and is just like, nice going, airhead.
That.
Perfect. Now, Max says it's 3 ancient hags versus the 20th century. How bad can it be? Bad. Now, Allison starts to open the book, and Thackeray tells her to stay out of there. It holds the most dangerous spells. They must not get it. Max says, let's torch this sucker, but it is protected by magic. Duh.
Mm.
Now, the witches find the kids, and they're just like, it's just a bunch of hocus pocus. And I'm like, okay, now we're excessively using the phrase hocus pocus.
that,
Um,
that was
the
my.
first time, it was fun, it was cute, it was entertaining. Don't need it again.
Yeah. You don't need the overkill.
Don't overkill it. Now, Allison scares Sarah away with a branch. Woohoo! A branch. And Winnie calls for the book, but Thackeray stops the book from flying away by jumping on top of it. And sweet. Apparently, the book is able to be stopped by a fairly small cat.
Mm.
And I was like, aw, what a cute reunion.
Mm.
All of them are back together. And then we get this beautiful line, thou hast waited in vain. Thou shalt fail to... I'm going to redo that. Thou hast waited in vain. Thou shalt fail to save thy friends just as thou failed to save her sister. And I was like, her sister? His sister? Shouldn't it be his sister? Why'd you say her
Thy
sister?
sister.
Is it thy sister?
Yeah,
And
that's what she
my
says.
computer and notes thing just autocorrected to her for some reason?
Yeah, it's
I'm
thy.
doing great.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, the witches can't touch them in the graveyard, which is true. But Winnie has a trick up her sleeve. She uses a spell and causes the skeletons on the graves to wake up. And the skeleton of Billy looks very annoyed that he has to get up. He looks upset that he has to get up. He's just like, I was taking a nap. It was a good dream. Why'd you wake me up? But he's also like, screw you. Like, you sewed my mouth shut. You are cruel. Why? Why would you? Yeah, I slept with your sister. Get over it. Your sister still is alive. Why didn't you punish her? Again, Billy, I get him. I get why he's annoyed. Now, Billy starts chasing the kids through the graveyard because Billy is able to be in the graveyard while the sisters cannot be. And they're running around, and Thackeray says, "In here," and they jump into a little structure type thing. It looked like some big structure. I don't really know
It's a
what it is.
mausoleum.
It's a mausoleum. Thank you. So they start jumping into there, and before Max jumps in, he uses a branch in the classic I'm going to pull a branch and let it go so it's going to whack you in the head. And he just knocks Billy's head off cleanly. And I was like, you know what? Good use of knocking head off. Well done. Bought you some time.
Mhm.
You jump into this mausoleum, and they take the book with them, and that's all I've seen. I don't know. We're in a mausoleum, and Billy's looking for his head. I hope he
Yeah,
finds it. Yeah, I mean, he knows where his head is, but I don't think he's grabbed his head yet. So I hope
right.
Billy gets his head back. But yeah,
So that's
this
that's
is
where you left off.
this is where I've left off. I
Oh
don't know what
wow.
happens
Okay.
next.
I want you. I can't remember the actor's name. Douglas, who plays Billy. He's actually was on the recent reboot of Star Trek, and he's done several of the creatures for major movies, like creature. There were a couple of. Look at his. I can't remember his last name. It's Douglas something. But he's a
Doug Jones.
Doug Jones. He is brilliant, and yeah, this was like start of his career because he's very very tall. He's like 6'4", very lanky, very very skinny, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean maybe not even be the start of his career. He may have done stuff before this, but this was
He would
his,
have been 33 when this came out.
yeah. So he there's a bunch of stuff on his IMDb. Check him out because and he's also if you follow him on Instagram, he responds if you have questions and stuff like that. He responds to questions, and he might even be somebody you can get on your podcast if you.
Ooh.
He's really nice.
Well, Doug
Uh,
Jones, I might be reaching out.
yeah.
For context, ladies and gentlemen, some things that Doug Jones is known for is Hellboy, Hellboy 2.
Yes.
I remember when those movies were coming out. The Shape of Water, Pan's Labyrinth, the Circuit Star Crew, and quite a few things.
Yeah.
But these are some of like the bigger named things that pop up right away when you Google his name.
Yeah.
But
He's
yeah.
phenomenal, and he also was on an episode of What We Do in the Shadows this
Mm-hmm.
past season, and he's hysterical as one of the lead vampires. So. Uh,
He is also in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Don't know who he plays. He
Yeah,
plays
anyway, he
the
is worth
Silver
looking into
Surfer.
because he's one of the people from this movie that his career has continued, but in such a very beautiful way that somebody who's very unique looking can
Mm-hmm.
get cast and recast in Hollywood. So that's
Yeah.
my take on it. Anyway, he's a great guy. Really, really.
No. Lovely. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of the movies that he's in.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, I know that this entire podcast revolves around the fact that I haven't seen anything,
Ah,
but I have seen a few of these movies that I have named out. I watched the first Hellboy movie. Just wasn't really my thing when I watched it
yeah.
years ago. Maybe if I watch it now again, I'll be more intrigued by it.
And I just
But
want to point it out. He's
yeah,
somebody to look out for because he's got a very unique career and he's got like he's everywhere. But
lovely.
like especially the new Star Trek and a couple of other really mainstream things that he's done is pretty amazing. So
Nice.
he's definitely
Well, I mean, he's very fun as Billy. I'm looking forward
oh yeah.
to seeing more of Billy. I really hope that Billy losing his head is not the last that we see of Billy.
No, but I will point out Billy does come back in the second movie as well. So you have more Billy.
Let's
So.
go. I mean, I like Billy because like he's just annoyed that
But
he's
that's what
been
I
brought
say.
back
That's
solely to
that's
chase
the
kids.
character. I I just think he had the most the best nonverbal moments of this movie. Like he didn't have to have lines in order to make anything enjoyable. Like he just had to be this dumb zombie,
Oh
and
yeah.
there were just some really funny classic moments coming up that you're going to see. So
Wonderful. I look forward to
yeah,
it. Bobby, as always, thank you so much for joining
yeah.
on this show. It is always a pleasure to have you. If people want to find you out in the world doing stuff, where can they follow you? Where can they find out stuff for some of your upcoming projects?
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Bobby Hedglin-Taylor, and you can find my book on Amazon. It is hashtag Shit My Mama Says, a humorous look at life while dealing with dementia. My second book is not out yet. I'm in the middle of editing Escape to Ravioli Mountain, a memoir and food. And you can catch me on the stand-up comedy circuit here in New York and in Pennsylvania. I'm doing a lot of resorts in Pennsylvania. But this winter, I'm doing a lot of New York dates. So check on all of my social media. And there's also a link tree on my Instagram, which I guess nobody uses Linktree anymore. It's yesterday, but I have a bunch of stuff there. So thanks for having me again, and enjoy the rest of the movie. And I can't wait to see how you enjoy the second half. I'm just very
Yeah,
curious to see how the rest of it goes for you.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you
Yeah.
so
All
much.
right.
And
Thanks
listeners, thank you
again.
so much for listening.
All
See
right.
y'all next week. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Post Finale. I hope you are all enjoying this episode. And if you want to gain access to more bonus content, like access to my notes and access to some of the tier lists that I make and help suggest films and things like that, all of that can be done over at our Patreon. And that can be found at patreon.com/co-op forge. So that's patreon.com/co_OPFORGE. Signing up for any of the tiers gets you different types of bonus content depending on the tier that you sign up for, and a shout out here on the show for every patron that signs up. It really means the world to us, and it helps us grow this show and helps us be able to put the money back into this show to make it a better experience for you, the listeners. That is our entire goal here at Co-op Forge. So thank you all so much if you are considering doing this. Now, if you want to help the show in a non-monetary way, that is fantastic as well. You can do so by just talking about us and sharing it with a friend. Just reach out to a friend and be like, hey, you love movies, or hey, you need an excuse to watch more movies. Check out this show called Post Finale. The host is silly, he's an actor, he's confused most of the time, gets a lot of guesses wrong, but overall it's a lovely time and some interesting discussions about some iconic films. I think you'll really enjoy it. It really does help. And be sure to talk about us on social media and follow us on social media. That really helps out a lot as well. If you're looking for the show, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Post Finale Pod. And then you can also find us at Co-op Forge on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And that's at Co-op Forge at CO_OPFORGE. And we post content not just from Post Finale, but from the other shows here on Co-op Forge as well. So that includes Flip the Scripts, and that includes Seattle Across the Pond. So be sure follow both of those channels. Again, it's at Post Finale Pod and at Co-op Forge, CO_OPFORGE. But just thank you so much for listening to this episode. Wherever you are, if you're enjoying the episode, if you're listening on YouTube, please like, please hit subscribe. It really does help us out. If you're listening on a podcast app, that's great as well. It doesn't matter to us where you're listening. We're just so thankful that you're listening. But if you're listening on a podcast app, please leave a rating. It really does help us out. Please leave a review and hit that follow button. You can also turn on notifications both on YouTube and on the podcast apps just to be notified when new episodes come out. It really does mean a lot that you are all listening to these episodes, and thank you all so much. So let's get back to the episode without further ado.